to call this meeting of the Finance and Corporate Services Committee to order. The first item is a consent item regarding the Kitchener Woodworking and Craft Center for a 5-year funding renewal. We don't have any delegations, but we have several members in the gallery to provide answers to any questions, although this is a consent item. So are there is anybody hoping to speak to this? Councillor Ioannidis.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay. Why would I? Of course. Okay, so the item has been moved by Councillor Ioannidis. Councillor Gazzola.
I wanted to move the issue.
Okay.
But that's fine. It really needs no discussion. We've been fortunate over the years to have this group of people working in our community. Whatever they're asking for, they well deserve it. So I just move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not waste any time. Move.
Okay. Councillor Fernandez.
Actually, my comments were going to be similar to Councillor Gazzola's. I've had some dealings with some of the gentlemen who work, and ladies, who work at the Woodworking Centre. One of them did a lovely job of a memorial bench for somebody in our neighbourhood. So I always look forward to popping in there because the smell of wood sawdust is what I grew up with my dad. So thanks for all the good work that you guys do within the community.
All right. So all those in favor? And that carries. No questions of you gentlemen, so thank you for your time. Thank you for coming.
On behalf of all of us, thank you.
All right. You're welcome. All right, next on the agenda we have a discussion item on the municipal sponsorship policy and asset inventory. There are no presentations of staff from what I understand, but there are people here to answer questions.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. My question is regarding, trying to find it now, the priority list of assets, and I'm wondering why the entire complex of the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium is on a low priority, because to me that seems like a high value added item.
Through you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Based on our surveys that we did publicly and privately, there was some discussion as to how aggressive we would be in selling the naming rights, and it was suggested that we wouldn't actively go after it. However, if there was an entity that would be interested in naming it, that we would certainly listen to it.
Okay, if we're not actively going for it, what do you think of the possibilities of even getting a naming right for the facility? So I don't think there's a lot of companies out there that would be knocking on our door to say, hey, we'll put a name on that facility, unless we go out and.
Well, through the chair, that's certainly an option, and that's why we presented the priorities here today. It's we would be in council's hands that if you would like to change the priority and be more active on it, we certainly could do so.
Okay. All right. Okay. When it's appropriate, I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Galloway-Sealock.
I second that. No, I wanted to move it as well. A couple questions, though. Just staying on the same vein. The asset inventory is small compared to the assets that we have. Is there a reason why we don't have more of our assets on this list overall? I'm thinking community centers, community arenas. I don't think I missed them. Some of the smaller areas of the South District Park, the Huron Natural Area trails, are those things that are going to be looked at down the road, or did I completely miss them under categories? More of the naming rights versus the events, or...
Through the chair, this was based on the feedback that we went out to all units and in regards to the inventory. And there are certain arenas such as Kinsman and Kiwanis that are already tied to naming rights. So the advice of the consultant was to address those areas that we felt would be a high priority, such as Sports World Arena and things like that. So there are some on there.
Yeah, I noticed Sports World. I was just thinking, even if it's like low priority or not considered at this time, to at least put it on our inventory as an opportunity or an option. And I'm not saying Kinsman or Kiwanis that are already named, but like most of our community centers don't have anything attached to it other than the geographical location. The Huron Natural Area may be an opportunity. With the building, the picnic area, the play structure, the entire park. So I was just thinking, is that the type of feedback you're looking for us today?
Well, through the chair, yes. Again, trying to prepare the report and the policy with the proper assets. Certainly, if that is something that council would like, we're certainly open to it.
Mm-hmm. So maybe I can give you kind of the list of things that I had. And over the course of the week, you can look at them and see if it's worth putting them on for the council meeting as an added. Does that work for you?
Through the chair, yes.
Then you don't have to jot them all down now, but I have them written down.
Thank you.
And then my only other question was with regards to page 2-9, and it's number 5. I was looking for a further explanation. So it's the focus of the ask to potential sponsorship partners should be market-based objectives and not philanthropic or charitable in nature. I was just wondering if you could elaborate on that one a little bit.
Through the chair, again, through our consultant and with reviewing different sponsorship policies throughout various cities, it was made pretty clear to us that philanthropic and charitable did not fall inside the actual ask of naming rights or sponsorship opportunities, that they would be available, but apparently there is already a policy in place for those.
Here at the city, there's already a policy in place?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, that might be something that'd be interesting to see before Monday.
I think we have Mr. May ready to comment on that.
Through you, Madam Chair, maybe I can clarify. There isn't a specific policy related to philanthropic or charitable. Just to be clear, all of the conditions laid out on page 2-9 were previously approved by City Council as the guiding principles behind our sponsorships. The point that Councillor Galloway-Seelock has raised is to say that we are not interested in competing for charitable dollars in our community. What we're interested in doing is selling this as a marketing asset to our partners, and there's a big difference, and I think our community partners will want to hear that we're making that distinction.
Right, and I, having been working with Paul and Jeremy on some of this, understand that that's the focus and that's the drive. I just wouldn't want, and I circled the word focus on the ask, and I'm not really concerned about the charitable in nature part. I'm more if somebody was to come forward and for philanthropic reasons wanted to do something, that we wouldn't say no, that we would allow that opportunity to move forward. And as long as that's what this is saying, then I'm perfectly okay with that. I have some comments at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Picard, maybe you want to just keep your microphone on for now.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez.
So when I was reviewing some of the feedback, you said that there was you had consulted with the chair of the Chamber of Commerce. I was trying to find out if I maybe didn't understand the other business owners, because it said citizens and business owners of the city of Kitchener were invited to comment. Of those 132 surveys, can you draw a distinction between the citizens and business owners?
Through the chair, it was our priority to make sure that we got a good sampling of both residents as well as the private sector business owners, and when they met with the president of the chamber, those were the recommendations he thought for us to be successful. That we would need to be conscientious about not making things difficult to do business with the private sector. The sampling from the survey, although small, we had a lot of people look at it, but only a small sampling respond to it.
Okay, and I understand that from the report, but what I'm asking is, were you able to distinguish between who were private citizens who were answering the survey and who were business owners that were answering the survey?
Through the chair, yes, we specifically did one for the private citizens, and then actually sought out the direction from the chamber.
Okay. Can I ask why you went like one step further to the chamber? I mean, I think it was a good idea, as I certainly agree with the comments that he made. Did you not receive the kind of feedback that you had hoped you would get from businesses about this concept?
Through the chair, I feel that we wanted to make sure that we had everybody considered in making a decision, which would include citizens and the business sector.
So it looks like Mr. May would like to comment on this as well.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's been a while, so just to remind Council, you explicitly approved recommendations saying engage the business community through stakeholder groups and citizens. So that was the direction that we followed.
Okay, but I wasn't. I remember that. What I just wanted to know was what the division was between, because I think private citizens will answer the survey in one way and businesses will answer in another way. And I wondered if, by going to the Chamber of Commerce, if you were not feeling you had enough response from the business sector, and that's why you went to the Chamber for additional comments. I really just wanted a clarification. My other question was around on 2-10. It says sponsorship opportunities will arise from unsolicited proposals, direct solicitation, and or a competitive process. Am I to understand that we would solicit, or they would be soliciting to us, whoever wanted to do a sponsorship of whatever particular?
Through Madam Chair, we would solicit sponsorships. However, there may be opportunities where companies or private entities may solicit us to for sponsorship, naming rights opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like what we have written now in the sponsorship shall not. I like those guidelines. I think that's really important. I think what I'm wondering, and again, this may have come up in the survey, it may not have, if us soliciting sponsorship may leave a bad taste in some residents' mouths. I mean, that's the only concern I have with the whole concept of sponsorship, is that there's always going to be the naysayers that say you're being bought out by company X, and that's why they're getting preferential treatment, or that's why, who knows, as a councillor, I get all kinds of reasons for people chastising me for one thing or another, and you're responsible for this and this and this and this. So I'm just raising that as a area that we maybe have to be cautious about when we do solicit.
Through Madam Chair, certainly when you're involving yourself with a public partnership or private partnership, you always have to take that into consideration. However, the way the policy is set up, it states there are certain guidelines that need to be followed, and I think we have a security net that if in fact something like that did arise, we would take it to the steering committee.
Okay. I'm happy
Councillor,
to see.
I'm sorry, but you're out of time. Do you want to queue back in?
Yep.
Okay, next up we have Councillor Singh.
Yes, thank you. So this is more focused initially on 2-13 for asset inventory. And now a lot of the, I guess the assets that are listed out, these are larger in context. Are we trying to look at a micro level too? Problem is when you're looking for a larger naming right opportunity for a bigger facility, it takes a while to get the right party, the right organization to align itself in seeing that they see some benefit and we feel suitable with them as well. But with smaller, what I'm saying is even neighborhood parks. I know Councillor Galloway Seelock mentioned something around community centers. I don't know specifically what she was fine tuning to, but she's going to provide her input. But are we looking at, simply the question is, are we looking at a micro level as well?
Through Madam Chair, certainly. One of the reasons we broke the naming rights and the events and program opportunities was understanding that buildings, larger buildings, it takes about 18 to 22 months just to strike a relationship. But there's certainly opportunities for the entry level or minor level type.
The reason why I'm saying I'm not seeing neighborhood parks. As subdivisions grow, or are being made, it's an excellent opportunity for a developer, or a builder that was involved with that project to maybe want to preserve their name to a neighborhood park there. That's an asset that exists in that neighborhood. Are we looking to utilize it?
Through Madam Chair, yes, we are. Okay. And part of the recommendation is that we bring, as the environment changes or as different developments grow, if there are new opportunities for assets, that we bring them back to council and have them approved.
Good. How are we articulating that out to the community? So I'm assuming that we will have some sort of website that's related to our sponsorship strategy that goes beyond of what's just out of an online document. Is that correct? Or?
Councillor Singh, sorry, just to interrupt. Mr. May, you wanted to comment before we go further?
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair, perhaps I could give some overall context to this program. And I think it's fair to say what we're trying to do is start small, get it right, and then grow. And so what you have in front of you on this asset inventory is our priorities. I've heard neighborhood parks and community centers now mentioned. I would suggest that if those are assets council believes we should put into the sponsorship program, we would look to your direction on that, because left to our own devices, that's not something we will put as a high priority.
Well, that would be my suggestion anyways. I don't know if there's a vote later on that needs to be amended to this, but I think neighborhood parks should be part of that strategy.
So through you, Madam Chair, then I would suggest you move a motion to that effect to change the asset inventory. And the same goes for community centers. Is that something council wants us to do?
Okay, thank you.
That's fine. I would do that. I still have a couple minutes left.
Yes.
So part of the terms of reference to our strategy as well. In our sponsorship funding, I see, and rightly so, being suggested improving the sponsor program or audience experience with whatever revenues that are generated. When we're looking at naming rights, say for example, as Councillor Galloway Seelock referred to in her ward, here on Natural Park, some play structure or whatever might be there. Would some of that revenues that comes back to the city, would it be invested directly into that park when it comes to naming rights?
Through Madam Chair, that would be part of the process that would be considered. As it states in the policy, there are different sections of consideration of where the money goes, but it was strategically pointed out to us that any money that comes to the sponsorship does go towards that asset.
Does go to for naming rights?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. I saw it explicitly being referred in the sponsorship funding. I wasn't sure with the naming rights that was going to be done the same way. Okay, all right. I'm going to take a minute just to think of anything else. If this is the opportunity to you. Do you want to go over a list so that I'm not saying the same things? Yeah. So, but I would move the neighborhood parks myself, though. I said it. No, if you want it, it's okay.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Singh. Okay, Councillor Gazzola.
On page 2.2, there are a list of sponsorships that we've gotten into. Can someone tell me where the revenue from those has gone?
Through you, Madam Chair, there there are existing baseline budget numbers that are required for each unit, and based on those budget items, the new accounts would be identified with the various units.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
What that means is it could potentially look at as a new account, but because accounts change from year to year, like sometimes you renew a sponsorship, sometimes you don't. We have a baseline that we are trying to meet so that each budget item can be met.
Okay, Mr. May?
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, the revenue for these items is built into the operating budget. So the revenue lines within each of our units includes this funding.
The reason I'm asking these questions is I disagree with the take that was given to you by the Chamber of Commerce and the policy item number 1 that says sponsorship revenue should be used to fund core programs and services. Well, what does that mean? That means it can be used anywhere. Is that what that means?
Through you, Madam Chair. Sorry, Councillor Gazzola, can you just clarify where you read?
Page 2.9 says sponsor revenue should not be used.
Yes.
So
through you, Madam Chair, again, these are all guiding principles which Council has previously approved. The point of that one is you don't want to add $100,000 in a sponsorship into your base budget, and then 2 years from now that sponsorship ends and you have a $100,000 hole.
well, that's fine, but I see no problem with using it for other city expenditures. And incidentally, you keep saying this is approved, but the first thing that we're asking here is that the sponsorship policy be approved. So has it been approved? Or
let me be clear. All of the items on page 2-9 have previously been approved by City Council. A recommendation was put forward to you to say, please approve these as the guiding principles for the sponsorship program. This is simply taking what you've already approved and putting it into a formal policy document.
So it hasn't been officially approved. We approved some intent to do something, but we're approving it now.
What I would say is that the rest of the policy has not been approved. Council has already passed a motion in support of all of the items on 2-9.
Okay, next point I have, I'm running out of time here. It says we should not be entering into sponsorship agreements. Item number 7 on 2.9. Does that mean that Union Gas doesn't get a chance to advertise with us or sponsor anything with us?
Through you, Madam Chair, could you please repeat the question?
I'm saying, does item number 7 state that Union Gas, for example, does not get an opportunity to do any sponsorship work or advertising with us? Because they are one of our competitors.
So that it would stand to reason that, yes, that's. I don't know if the staff members familiar with that example, but yes, that's what it means. Oh, Mr. May.
Through you, Madam Chair, to be clear, I certainly don't see Kitchener Utilities as competing with Union Gas. However, something like Reliance is. Another example might be we don't want to enter into some major sponsorship with a competing golf course, which would be detrimental to the revenues of our golf courses. So that's the purpose of that clause.
Yeah, well, I have a problem with that because as a municipality, we shouldn't have a leg up on especially on things that the private sector can be involved with. I mean, let's compete with them and compete fairly. Item number 10 talks about no implied obligation to purchase product. I'm just wondering how that works in conjunction with the smartphone charging stations at the Odd, who are there through the courtesy of TELUS. Do those?
So through you, Madam Chair, this is a sponsorship agreement currently in place, but there is no implied obligation that because there is a partnership or a sponsorship that we as a city or any units of the city are obligated to using, in this case, TELUS as a service provider.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen these stations, but how widely broadcast is the TELUS name?
TELUS is represented through you, Madam Chair. TELUS is represented in the various locations that the charging centers are, but there's no other indication of, again, of any relationship that the city entities are using them. For example, the one at the Odd, it's there, it's available as a service, and provides exposure to TELUS for the sponsorship. But there's no implied, like we're not using TELUS as our phone provider at the Odd or anything like that.
Okay. Councillor Gazzola, you're out of time. Would you like to queue back in if you have more questions, please?
I'm out of time. The people.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Marsh. We may have the potential of an arts hub in the future, and if that would happen, would it be a possibility for naming rights for this? And if so, how would that be added to the priority list?
Through you, Madam Chair, if that is available, and again, staff is at the hands of council, if you would like to add that to the inventory, that would be something that should be done. And if it's something that is going to happen during the course of the year, as I mentioned previously, we will be reviewing any new opportunities that come our way and then making a report back to council.
Okay, thank you, because I think that would be a great fit for something like this.
Right.
Also, just a question, do trails, do they come under natural areas? Because it seemed like trails, we're always looking for money for our trails. It seemed that would be a fit for sponsorship or naming rights.
Through Madam Chair, it would be conceivable that would fit through trails and paths and parks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Apologies, I was a little bit late coming in, but I wanted to follow up on the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium complex. I can't recall, but when we did the public feedback on that, was there consideration to keeping the word memorial in the renaming? For example, like a Manulife Memorial Complex?
Through Madam Chair, based on the radio survey talk and show that you and I did, there was kind of mixed comments about that, whether memorial should stay in, whether it should just be the naming right company. So I don't think that has been determined.
But in the less than 50% approval, then, I guess, I recall that not being part of the actual survey. Is that correct? Do you know?
Yes, that wasn't specifically asked.
Okay. And yeah, the reason I asked is because I think if we could bump that up to a high priority with that stipulation that the word memorial stays in. And I just had one other question with respect to where the funding goes. I understand the dollar's not going to core services. But would it prevent us, like using the auditorium example, would it prevent us from putting proceeds into a fund for a future construction of the new arena that we would build at some point in the future? Or would it preclude that?
Through Madam Chair, again, the recommendation from the consultant that assisted us with this project, as well as the feedback we got from other municipalities, was certainly if things like that wanted to be addressed or changed, that would be up to council. However, these were the four areas that were to be considered for using the funding.
Okay, thank you. I'll have comment as well, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We're on to round 2 of questions. Councillor Fernandez.
Thanks. I really like the list of high priorities that you have set out. And am I to assume, or are we to assume that you will go through these first before you start in entertaining additional items added to the list? Have you prioritized, I mean, you've prioritized them between high, medium, and low. Have you prioritized these on a list as well, or is it basically as somebody shows interest?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's exactly right. You know, various companies have various needs and look for different opportunities to market. Although if we were soliciting, we would look at the high priorities because they do make most sense. But however, if there is a company or individual that's looking at one of the lower priorities, we would have to consider it. The other option is we do look at putting package together in our typical sponsorship. So during our discovery with each company, there may be a fit that may be lower or higher priority. So we would have to consider that.
Have you heard from businesses already who are interested, sort of just waiting in the wings until all of this is approved?
Through you, Madam Chair, we've participated in some discovery sessions already with some local companies, and also even to the point where we've had a second interview with a particular company, and have some second interviews also scheduled.
Mr. May?
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, I just have to take this opportunity to repeat what I've said often on this topic. There are likely no companies waiting in the wings to do this. This is going to be heavy, difficult slogging. It's a very competitive environment. That's why we need to create the Office of Strategic Partnerships so we can proactively get out there and sell these assets.
Okay. You've set a $125,000 sort of limit to, that you could, your department, your group could engage for a partnership. When I look at the list of high priorities, that's not going to go very far for some of these items. I mean, I think $125,000 is a great limit, in my opinion, before it comes to council. Do you see certain items on this list that will be a quick sort of buy-in?
Through you, Madam Chair.
Even though, I bet, with all due respect to Mr. May's comment about heavy slogging, yes, I think it'll be heavy slogging, but maybe $125,000 is much more doable for many businesses. Maybe and higher ones will require a lot more discussions between yourselves and the business who's interested.
It is, through Madam Chair, it's been our experience starting again out small that there hasn't really been a need, but we have aligned these totals with the current city procurement guidelines.
Right. Is that industry standard? So were you able to look at what other cities have done, or are we breaking ground here?
Through Madam Chair, we have consulted with the other municipalities, and it's really quite all over the board as to what they do and how they handle their individual limits.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Gazzola.
Just want to follow up a couple other items. On page 210, sale of tobacco is out, right?
Through Madam Chair, that's correct.
How about alcohol?
Through Madam Chair, we currently have examples of sponsorships with preferred pouring rights, for example, at the auditorium.
Why do you ban tobacco? And now don't get me wrong here. I'd love to see tobacco totally banned, but we don't have the backbone to do that. So why, if you've got an advertising or promotion, why would you not include tobacco the same as you do alcohol?
Just a quick point of information, it's actually banned by the province, not
not by us. They're not allowed to advertise anymore.
Okay, and we can't do anything about that. How about alcohol? Alcohol's okay? Boy, we're a bunch of hypocrites, aren't we? All right, so we're washing our hands on that one. I had another question on the on a change, if I can. Well, on the bottom of page 211, it says, should there be a change in policy, the city continues to be the sole and final arbiter in all matters. Now, who is the city?
Through Madam Chair, that would be the committee that is set up. So if there are any discrepancies or issues to be addressed as far as what's allowable or not, it would go back to the sponsorship committee.
Okay, but when it says final arbiter, should that not read city council? Should city council not have the final say?
Mr. May?
Through you, Madam Chair, if we're referring to a change in this policy, absolutely, City Council would approve this policy and then be the only ones who can make changes to the wording of this policy.
Well, I'm referring to that bottom paragraph, so I'm just dealing with that. Can we change the word city to city council? Doesn't seem like a big move to me.
Well, through you, Madam Chair, the only reason I'm pausing is because if it's simply a question of policy interpretation, I think I don't think Council wants to get into that. And so that's the reason for my pause.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is the way we operate, if City Council approves a policy, staff cannot change that policy without Council approval.
Yeah, I keep going back to the word final.
So just a quick point of clarification. So if there's a whole change in policy to be requested, then staff is unable to change that. But if it's a policy interpretation question, that's up to, it sounds like, Mr. May, are you saying that that's up to staff discretion?
That's correct.
Councillor
I mean, through you,
Gazzola?
Madam Chair, Councillor Gazzola, if the word final is the one that's causing you problems, I don't think it's of a key point to us, so you could remove that from the policy.
No, I don't want to remove that. I want to put council, word council, in after city.
Point of clarification. Is this not to just do with the third-party sponsorship agreement? So if somebody thought there should be a change in the policy, like if they're requesting it for an agreement, or if there's a question about policy interpretation because of the third-party sponsorship agreement, that's the only piece we're talking about. We're not talking about the overall policy, right? It's under that subcategory of the third-party sponsorship agreements?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, my final question, and it's just my ignorance here. I didn't realize that we had approved this Office of Strategic Partnerships. Can you just tell me a little bit about that?
Mr. May?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's a change that was made administratively within existing staffing and resources. So recognizing that this is a priority of Council and the Corporation, we reassigned resources to make this the higher priority.
Can you just give me a little bit of detail on what you did?
Sure. So the only thing we did was we had a business analyst within the Community Services Department. We have reassigned that FTE to support sponsorships and advertising on a full-time basis.
Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you. It was kind of funny how Councillor Gazzola approached a question about tobacco and advertising alcoholic beverages or sponsoring with those companies. For the long part of my life, I never drank and I never got secondhand drunk. So I guess as ill as the societies, there are, I guess, levels of severity and things. But anyways, more to serious matters. So initially when this all began as a sponsorship strategy, some of the frustration that I personally saw as well was a lot of red tape or barriers in just simple sponsorship, matter of a bench. That's really where it kind of started off from too. There was so much red tape at that point. Will this kind of alleviate those minor hurdles as well?
So through you, Madam Chair, the whole idea of operating more like a business when we do this stuff and getting rid of the red tape is exactly why the council or the policy and the inventory is before you. So that if we can get your approval on that, we can run with it. The Office of Strategic Partnerships can stick handle a lot of that work and hopefully make it easier to sell these assets.
Okay, that's fine. And will there be opportunity for us to continue to revisit the priority list, adding additional items as we expand our city, as we expand our programming, events, facilities? There are other opportunities that may come up as well. So can this be an annual revision of the list?
So through you, Madam Chair, the recommendation is that the Corporate Steering Committee be delegated the task of updating this list on an annual basis. Having said that, because this is a relatively new program, if Council wanted to see this come back in a year's time, I think that might be a good opportunity for us to update you on the progress of the program, and you could do that at that time.
I would recommend that, and hopefully that could be taken as part of the recommendation as well. And in the priority list, Kitchener Market was precluded. Any reason why Google Kitchener Market would be a bad thing? Presuming Google would want.
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair, I think it's really a question of branding, and I think that the Kitchener Market has spent a lot of time and money trying to brand itself, and I don't think that our friends in economic development wanted to diffuse that brand by adding a sponsorship name.
Well, I'm not going to use the opportunity to get into an argument on that, but I think we need to. My only comment I will make is use some flexibility on that. We can't be too protective on certain things. We have to, as you said it, the Office of Strategic Partnerships, the whole aspect of that is showing flexibility. And so we have to carry that on as well. So I see it there. I'm not going to recommend any change, but I see some aspects there that could be, I think, advantageous to be open for sponsorship or naming rights in the future. But I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Councillor Etherington, since you're the first one to speak, I'll put you forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to ask the question, when we're looking at sponsorship criteria, I can understand tobacco up to a point. I could also understand the point made about booze. We're all worried about obesity and obese children. Along that line, why would we not consider, or will we be asked to consider, a ban on Coca-Cola, soft drinks that contribute heavily to obese children? Is there any answer to that?
Councillor, Mr. May.
Through you, Madam Chair, the sponsorship criteria set out on page 2-10 is directly in line with the same criteria that was created for our advertising policy and approved by this council previously. It's also in line, I believe, and I could re-research this and get back to you, but it's also in line with advertising standards across Canada. If council wishes to add more limiting criteria, you are certainly able to do that. I would simply tell you that the more criteria you add in, the less likely it is that we'll be able to generate revenue through this program.
Okay, Councillor Schneider.
I'm more comments, so if there's any more questions, then fire away.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot to ask. I assume that the center and the square is not here because they're handled by an arm's length board?
Through Madam Chair, correct.
Okay. Because I think it would definitely benefit them because of the policy that it would go back to their center. Could we, I guess, engage them prior to Monday to see if they would be interested, or I guess I'd have to be in line for a meeting, but it seems something that if we're already getting this structure in place, they would be interested in. So can we engage them at some point then to see if they would like to be part of this?
Through Madam Chair, I believe we could have those discussions.
Okay. Are there any concerns from staff standpoint on that?
Mr. May?
Through you, Madam Chair. So thanks to the diligent work of our Deputy CAO of Finance and Corporate Services, we actually are in the midst of arranging such a meeting. to potentially provide some support to Center in the Square. I can also tell you that the Kitchener Public Library has expressed some interest in learning from us and using the expertise that we're developing in-house.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And earlier to my suggestion about this coming back perhaps a year from now, that may be at that point an opportunity, if nothing is decided, for us to be able to add those items as well, provide this cooperation with those boards.
Councillor Ioannidis, do you have a question? Okay, so do we have actually, Councillor Ioannidis, you are moving this, so do you want to comment first or last? Yeah, you can, Councillor Gazzola, you've had 2 turns, but if it's quick, you may.
Oh, I'm so thankful for a 3rd turn. I wonder if staff could just briefly tell me what we expect to get out of this program. What are our goals for the program?
Through you, Madam Chair, what I'd suggest we can do is recirculate the sponsorship strategy and original staff report because it's quite detailed and it has a very detailed answer to that question. So we'll recirculate that by email.
Okay, so Councillor Ioannidis, if you want to speak next, I also want to just ask staff, though, quickly before we go to you. Is it implied, or can we add to this motion that staff will come back in a year to update on how the, just to give us a status update?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's probably helpful if you add that as a specific point of the recommendations.
Okay, so I'm recommending that we add that. Okay, Councillor Ioannidis?
We can add that. That's not a problem. Okay, thank you. Again, I'm really pleased to see this move forward. I think it seems like it's been a while that we've dealt with this, and any initiative that's that is going to add additional revenue to the city and rely less on our tax base and enhance the assets that we have, creating a better quality of life for our residents is something that I'm very supportive of, and I'm looking forward to seeing this move as efficiently as possible. And I want to thank staff and for their time and their dedication, and all the best, and keep pushing it, and let's see this thing move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Ioannidis. Councillor Galloway-Seelock, did you want to add your amendment?
Yeah, I guess it would be an addition, but yeah, amendment's fine. I can get Colin to put it up on the screen, but the motion is just that staff look at including the above, there's a list of things, to the asset inventory and determine the appropriate priority level. There's about, 10 or so things named there. Some of them just get into a little more detail than what's already on the list with regards to South District Park. I already talked about community centers. There's trails on there. Neighborhood parks is on there as well. In the Huron Natural Area. I think for me, making sure that we have a full list of inventory so that staff have the best list that they can work off of is the right way to go. And so I've added those things from my perspective. Having had the opportunity to work with staff and be in a couple of the meetings that have already happened, I can just commend the work that you guys are doing. It's been absolutely incredible working with you in these meetings and working towards partnerships, and hearing from people in our community that they really appreciate the approach that we're taking. I think is kudos to you and the efforts that you've been putting into this. You've given me a true appreciation of how we need to give you guidelines to follow through with, but also to give you the flexibility so that you can actually do your job and do it well and do it right. I've already said we need, in my opinion, a full list of things to use. So I give you this list to look at over the next week. And if there's any that, the public was like, no, we don't want those, just give us that explanation. But if you can, I leave it to you to prioritize them, whether they're high, medium, or low, or if, again, they're just non-starters because of the feedback that you've already received. But I really feel like this is a great piece of work. I'm excited that we've moved our Office of Strategic Partnership forward. I think it's a great asset for our city, and I think it's an opportunity for us to increase our revenues moving forward. And I am just really supportive of what's going on here with this and with the staff who are doing the work. So I wholeheartedly support this.
Thank you. Councillor Fernandez.
Thanks. I think the policy guidelines are going to be good guidelines to follow by. I think it's important for us to review it in a year's time and see where we are at. But I just wanted to make a comment about the alcohol advertising. It may not be that we don't get secondhand drunk, but we do see the implications of drunk driving. And I saw it within my ward recently. So I think as we engage in that industry, and I think that that's where Councillor Gazzola may have been going with this, even though we have pouring rights through Oktoberfest, we expend a lot of money, a lot of time, and our police services dedicate huge amount of time making sure that we don't have any drunk drivers on the street, and that we protect, and we talk about our community safety. And I know that within these policy frameworks, you're going to be looking at that. I'm sure of that. But I just wanted to make sure that what I think Councillor Gazzola was speaking to, and after what's happened recently in my ward, I hope that those guidelines will transfer over into being very sensitive, that we are not having sponsors sponsor activities, or let's just pull something off of this list, community centers where our families are gathering and our children are gathering. So I'm sure you're going to be following these guidelines. I think they're very well laid out, and I think you've had a lot of discussion and you've looked at all of the different avenues. I'm just adding my little cautionary note to that, along with Councillor Gazzola's comments.
Thank you. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Marsh. Thank you for this report, and I'm excited that we could maybe generate some revenue for improving some of our sponsored programs and our audience experience. I think that's just great. I do want to caution about the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, because I've been going to games there since I was 5 years old, and when we used to enter off the East Avenue entrance, so that was the main entrance, there was a carved plaque that was right above the box office windows. It's now right beside the box office windows. I can't quote it word for word, but the auditorium was built by the citizens of Kitchener, who, in appreciation of the sacrifices made by the men and women of our armed forces, erected this edifice as a living memorial. And it continues to honor their lives and the lives of those who are currently serving our country. So if the day comes that we build a new arena, a big arena, then I think it's time to look at naming rights. Right now, I don't think it's the time.
Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you. And I think from the point where we had started, it's kind of wonderful to see the journey that this has taken and taken a life of its own. I think we're progressing in the manner that we had really hoped that we would. We are really looking at, in a prudent way, of capitalization of our assets, beyond just providing service delivery and benefits to our community, but there is a certain distinct additional value to the assets that we have within our city that can perhaps give additional revenues that can increase that service delivery that's being done at whichever venue that would have a naming right or aspect of sponsorship and partnering with businesses too. Ultimately, I think having this and articulating an Office of Strategic Partnership sends a clear message, I think, into our business community that this city, the municipal government, is very open and forward-thinking and wanting to partner, and complementary to our businesses that are local, that would want to take advantage of further utilizing, for marketing aspects and showing that the community return that they would be able to give by partnering with the city or sponsoring in various capacities. So the other aspect is about it being nimble. About it being flexible. I think one of my colleagues has already said it. It has to obviously go on a certain criteria, but clearly we can't tie your hands. We have to allow you to have a certain level of flexibility to be able to attract. This is not easy work, to go out there and convince someone that naming a facility or sponsoring something and adding their name to it can clearly give them an immediate benefit. This is a long-term investment for them, and in many cases, it ends up being more of a goodwill gesture. We have to show what those benefits of that goodwill gesture is. We have to show what also immediate tangible benefits they are to that business, and we have to have that flexibility to be able to do that, and I think that's why there definitely needs to be that Office of Strategic Partnership. And just to clarify my comment, only because it was referred again, and I carried on with jest as from Councillor Gazzola when he, kind of commented the difference between tobacco advertising and alcohol. One substance, an advertisement in community events or places or whatever, those are prohibited through legislation from a provincial government. Where aspects of alcohol, that's a substance that clearly we sell at our city-owned venues. There's partnerships we have with businesses that brew alcohol, that advertise in our city-owned venues. So we already are in that business. So unless we want to have that very serious conversation, which if it is, I would love to be able to take a part of it, but I thought that wasn't on the table. To bring it so rashly, I think sent I wouldn't say disrespect, but I think it gives a confusing impression to staff of what quickly are we really setting the priorities at, and I think more notice needs to be given on that. That was my only point in clarifying between the tobacco and the alcohol. It's not to say that the circumstances, Councillor Fernandez, that you outlined in your ward are very much sad, but again, I think they're very different to what we were talking about as to who we allow to sponsor or have naming rights. So, thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Taking into account comments made by Councillor Schneider, I fully respect the naming of the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium complex and its origin, but I still would like to put forward an amendment that it be moved not to high priority but to medium priority. I have it written out, but and also that the term memorial does remain in any future name. I do think it's a relatively inoffensive way to get extra revenue. And that is, I think, the key here is that sometimes we forget how difficult it is to budget for these things until it comes to the actual budget that we deal with, and we're faced with raising taxes. And municipalities need to find other ways to generate revenue outside of taxation. So, is naming some of our assets may some people not like that? Yes, but I think I don't think it's as harsh as having to constantly put additional strain on families through taxation, which is why I'm very supportive of this program. So again, the motion would be that the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium Complex be moved from low to medium priority, and that memorial remain part of any potential name.
Okay. Did you want to put that up? It won't fit? Oh, yeah, we'll have to take it separately, just for the benefit of all to read it with their eyes instead of just with their ears. Okay. Next, we have Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, thank you. I have a number of concerns with a number of these policies that are written here, and because of that, I won't be supporting this proposal. One of my biggest concerns is that we're really looking at getting into a whole new era, and we're getting into marketing as a way to make a few dollars, and yet our very first principle states that revenue should not be used to fund core programs and services. And I keep hearing talk around the table about helping to reduce our taxes. I don't think one's going against the other. The other big concern I have is with the Memorial Auditorium. To me, it was there. It's the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, and particularly that building. I think Councillor Schneider has hit it on the nail on the head. Perhaps down the road, and it'll be a long way down the road, I think, because we have a tremendous facility there. But if we were looking at a new facility, it might be appropriate. But I'm afraid going down the road here that there'll be attempts to change it. And Manulife Memorial Auditorium or Sun Life Memorial Auditorium is the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. And because of that, and I'm really concerned with a number of these issues. We're setting up a whole new division to deal with marketing. I don't think marketing is a major mandate of a lower tier municipality. Yes, there's a lot of ways to make extra money, but it makes it difficult for us to carry out our other services. So when it's all over, I would ask for a recorded vote, and unfortunately at this time I won't be supporting it. I'll keep an eye on it when it comes back to council, and I understand it's coming back here for review in a year's time. Perhaps I can be proven wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 2 additions so far, and I have a third that I'd like to just bring forward just to clarify what has already been said, and with a minor addition, that staff maintain a high level of communication with council as sponsorship agreements are developed, and that staff report back in spring 2017 with a brief update on the status of the policy's implementation. Oh. Okay, so scratch that. So I'd like to ask a council person to bring forward just a okay. So how is it added in? Are you going to, has it? Okay. Okay, so it's added into the motion then when we vote on it that we will ask for a report back in spring of 2017 with a brief update on the status. All right, Mayor Verbanovic.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a few comments on this. I will be supporting this and I'm appreciative of the work that staff have done to get this to this point through the various phases, both some of the initial principles which we considered previously, and now the policy that prioritizes some of the potential naming rights and the priorities given to those areas. In saying that, I recognize that consideration of this is a balancing act, and I think staff have tried to best reflect what they heard from the community in terms of what our community values are around this issue, and have that reflected in the policy that's before us. Are we going to get it 100% right for 100% of the people? Absolutely not. There are some that are probably going to say everything should be a high priority and we should be able to sell everything. And there'll be others in the community that say we shouldn't sell anything because it should stay
totally within the purview of the community. I think the proposal that's before us has tried to find that right balance, recognizing the sensitivities around some of the issues. In terms of the two amendments that are before us, I'm okay with supporting Councillor Galloway-Seelock's amendment because staff will be looking at those and bringing their recommendations back in terms of where they fit on the priority list for when we consider it next week. I will say up front, I do have some difficulty in terms of sponsorship around neighborhood parks and community centers, because I think those will those resonate with sensitivity to the community, and so I think we just need to be cognizant of that. When it comes to the Memorial Auditorium, I recognize where Councillor Davies going with this, and probably if I was chair of finance, I would sort of want to see it moved on the list as well. But I think in reality, I think this one does have a deep emotional attachment to the residents of our community. I tend to think similarly to Councillor Schneider and Gazzola on this issue, and so I can't support this one at this time. I think when we do build a new facility, and that's probably 15, 20 plus years away, when we have to think about that, I think that'll be the time to reconsider that issue. But right now, I think it would bring about a lot of sensitive emotions, particularly when we're just the reality of demographics. Some of the soldiers that came back from World War II are reaching their end of life stage right now. And so I think we need to be particularly sensitive to that issue. And so overall, though, I think this is speaking to what municipalities across the country and across the world, quite frankly, are looking at as a way to balance what taxpayers should have to pay for through taxes and other revenue sources, and what can be achieved through this. And I think the ideas that are in front of us certainly provide some opportunities for staff to now go and roll up their sleeves and start tackling this, and then we'll see where it goes.
Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Madam Chair, I agree. I'll be supporting the main motion. I agree with the Mayor on the auditorium one. I would just ask, and I have every confidence that this would happen, that staff be very careful with the sponsorship criteria that I mentioned earlier. I can't resist bringing up the obvious, and that is that when this country legalizes marijuana, what would we do if there was a local marijuana company came and wanted to sponsor? I presume we'd say no. But at that time, I doubt it will be treated in the same way as tobacco is. So we need to be very careful what we're getting into here. But I will support the policy.
Councillor Singh, you have more comments?
No, as the person that brought up the aspect of staff reporting back a year from now, my intent was not only an update, but also for council to have an opportunity to reassess the priority list. So I don't know if you had wanted to take that separately or if that's still part of your intent.
Can I get you to cue in, Councillor Ioannidis?
I think when it comes up in a year's time, I think we can always add or subtract items at that time. That's why it's a review.
Just wanted to articulate that priority list to be part of the assessment by council. So if council wants to take that separately, they can, or if it can be part of it, that's okay too. I'll leave it to the mover and the chair to decide.
It doesn't matter to me. I think we're picking at hairs here, but sure.
Councillor Davey.
Yeah, I appreciate your indulgence. I'll be very brief. I just want to be 100% clear that so it wasn't misconstrued. I specifically left the term memorial in there. It was only perhaps Kitchener that might be taken out. I am absolutely sensitive to the reason that it was built, and I'll be 100% clear too. My grandfather fought in the war. He flew with the Royal Air Force and the Royal Canadian Air Force, so I just want to be 100% clear on that. The only intention here is I'm thinking going forward, I know what's going to happen, in 10 or 15 years' time. We're going to start looking for funding for a new arena, and there's more than likely not going to be any funding available. So imagine if we had a situation where every year there was X number of tens or hundreds of $1,000s set aside. So instead of having to go into debt to build the new future arena, there was a pot there already. That was the intention of this amendment.
Okay, and with that, we have no more comments. So it's, a recorded vote has been called. So we'll take the amendment addition to the amendment, whatever you want to call it, the amendment addition to first. We'll vote on that first, and then we will vote on. So first, we're going to vote on the additions to the priority list that were brought forward by Councillor Galloway-Sealock. All those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. Next, we're going to vote on the amendment put forward by Councillor Davey that the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium be moved from low to medium priority and that memorial remain as part of any potential name. So recorded vote. All those in favor, please rise. All those opposed? And that motion fails. That amendment fails. So now we're going to vote on the original motion, including the addition that it be reported back on in the spring of 2017. So recorded vote has been called. All those in favor? All those opposed? And that carries. So that we did. Do we have to do the motion as amended now? That was as amended. Yeah. Thank you for helping to clarify. So that concludes all the discussion. Oh, Councillor Fernandez.
I have a number of questions about the Development Charge Reserve Fund. I realize it's here for information, but I have a couple questions, so I'd like to ask to move that from information into discussion, please.
Okay. So
to take a vote.
Let's take a vote. All those in favor of moving the information item into discussion, please raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? That carries. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So I noticed that there's on page 5 that we're in a deficit balance on the Development Charge Reserve Fund. So I need to understand. I'm just going to quickly make a comment about the charts. I confess I need glasses, but this print is just a tad too small. I wouldn't mind if we had it a little bit bigger, the font, if possible, for future review. So my first question is, why the negative balance? Is that because we're not taking enough through DCs? Or is it because we may be offering too many exemptions?
Mr. Chapman.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's the former. we've not realized the level of development charge revenue that was forecast in the background study. We indicated that through the budget process last year and said that we may come through a future budget process to scale back the work program, but we felt it was premature last year, 1 year into the new DC study, to make that call.
Okay, and I do remember that, so thanks for reminding me about that. So when I looked at a couple of the pages that went further, so there's a number of deficit on projects that I thought were completed. One, the Homer Watson pumping station, and the block line widening. There's still a deficit in those accounts. Why haven't we closed those out yet? Are we still waiting for DCs to come in to pay for that, or how does that work?
No, I believe you are correct. Those projects are complete, and what you're looking at is a table of expenditures. So where you see brackets, it's meaning that it's actually a revenue back to the DC Reserve Fund, likely because we've closed out a balance from that project back to the DC Reserve.
Okay, because I'm used to seeing them as a negative, but in this case it's going back to the reserve.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a point that we can understand when it says things like miscellaneous creek rehabilitation and neighborhood park rehabilitation? It wouldn't be through this process that we would find out the details of that, what those are. What process would we find the details of that?
Through the chair, if you had specific questions, I'd be more than happy to share that information with council if you want to send me those project descriptions. But as you can suspect, in many cases, that could be a combination of many small projects. In some cases, it may be one project that comprises the total.
Okay, and I think that was... I did have something else written down here, so I'm just trying to understand my scribbling. When I'm looking at when I'm looking on page 9, underneath the tax-based capital, we've got a whole list of projects there. I thought these were projects that are supposed to come out of DC funding. Why is there a tax-based component to that, or am I just confusing how we're dividing the funding for those projects?
Through the chair, there are two reasons for that. In some cases, it may be the mandatory 10% discount for soft services, so you know that for some services, only 90% can be funded through DC. In other cases, it would be a function of the calculation of the benefit to growth versus non-growth. So I think a good example of that would be the planning studies line, where they have one budget for planning studies, but they do a calculation to determine how much of that expenditure relates to growth-related studies. That's charged to DC, and the amount for existing development, redevelopment would be funded through the tax base.
Okay, that's great. All right, and I will send you an email about those other items. Thank you.
Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I want to start off first by the back 5 pages were extremely difficult. Lacks transparency. I couldn't read it. So I would hope that we can, I mean, you're required to report this to council. I trust that we can get copies with a larger print.
Through the chair, I'll take that feedback back. Yes, we can do that. The only thing I would point out is the reason why we've done it here is to give a snapshot on one page. By making it larger, it will be more difficult to understand. It'll be spread across multiple pages. It's a trade-off.
By doing that, you lose the
snapshot.
Yeah. The other question I could read on Table A, and I struggled with the fact that looking at Table A under the non-discounted residential, I couldn't understand why there was some interest expense involved with that. Unless it seems to me because of the balance, the opening balance, the revenue that came in, and taking the expenditures into account, it would have always been in the black. So why would there be a need to borrow funding for that?
Through the chair, I don't believe there was. I think the bracket may just be reversed, looking all the way across the line. I think it's just the description, or the brackets are reversed.
Okay, I was wondering if that was the case.
I think that's the case. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
We'll correct that.
I have a number of other questions, but when I can read them, I'll send you the questions. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions. Mr. Chapman?
No, I turned my microphone off.
Okay. So seeing no further questions, this meeting is adjourned. We will reconvene at 3 o'clock.